Welcome to today's webinar. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and I'm happy today to have Kirby Laborte and Hilary Supo with me. This is a very timely topic. We've been helping our customers convert their SharePoint Designer workflows to Power Automate and also 2013. As many of you may know, the SharePoint Designer 2010 workflows are stopping working. They will be shut down or shut off on November 1st, unless, of course, you are a special, COVID response frontline worker that you need them running. And we have a couple of customers who are actually asking Microsoft for exceptions. So that's the reason why we're doing this webinar today, is really to talk about how you can move those webinars to the future. And before we get started, I've just got two quick polls for you. Just one question here. First question, do you have SharePoint Designer workflows? And yes, we have one response. Just waiting for a few more here. It looks like we all of you are saying you do. That's great, or not, as the case may be. So let me just ask the next question then. And that is, are you concerned about the deadline? Maybe you aren't. Maybe you have already. Okay, great. Well, that's why you're here. So this is a very timely topic then. Let's just get back to this and get on with it. We have a short webinar for you today, and we're going to share our tips and techniques for how we've been helping our customers move their 2010 workflows to both 2013 and Power Automate. In fact, lots of stuff to talk about today, but we'll get on with it then. So just to start off with, there are a couple kind of high-level types for workflows. There's the sequential workflow, and then you also have this parallel step. Most of the workflows we see are the left. They're the sequential ones. I would say it's 95%. Hilary, Kirby, feel free to jump in at any time and add comments if you want. I'm going to be asking them to do demos here in a minute, and I'll be doing a demo myself. But so we have lots of different actions that we look at in workflows, but in general, if you look at what really needs to execute on the server, I kind of like to think of these 5 different types. You've got an email you're sending out to somebody, maybe you're doing a Teams chat, you're creating some task or some item in a separate list. You might be moving a document or an item from one list to another, from one library to another. And then there's, of course, everyone likes to remove permissions, to restrict access, and then logging the actual workflow so that we know what happened, creating an audit trail. So those are the types of things that we typically do. In fact, if you can think of something that's not in those 5, let us know, because we've done a lot of work over the years to help people create workflows. And to be honest, these are the things that can be done on the server. There isn't really a whole lot. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff in your SharePoint Designer workflows. You can have logic, but you can also put that in your forms or in your document. So we'll talk a little bit about the difference between forms and documents in a minute. But to begin with, Hilary, I guess maybe, do you want to talk to this slide?
Yeah, so this is Hilary. Hi again, if I saw you at last week's webinar. I think the most important thing we can do, aside from don't panic, I think the most important thing to do is to know what things are doing. So if you've got some, SharePoint Designer 2010 and 2013 workflows rolling around, that you haven't recently looked at, it would be best to take the time up front to sort of step through them, take a look at them, make sure you confidently understand what actions these workflows are taking and how they're interacting, because that's going to really inform your next decision, right? What you're going to do with these. So make sure you know what they're doing. Patrick's suggestion here to kind of color code and set up a diagram is great if you're a diagrammy person. I do 90% of my work in Notepad++, right? I'm more of like a typing person. So whatever works for you visually to make sure you have a good understanding of the process and how these processes are interacting, because you cannot rebuild it unless you know what it does. We all know that, right? I harp on that all the time. And I think the next thing to do is let's all, try to, again, this goes along with the don't panic modality, take a deep breath and look at it and see what's still really relevant. There may be things that your workflow is doing historically because Bob in accounting used to want it that way, or the CEO had a specific need 5 years ago, and these things are maybe still happening just because they're cruft, they're no longer valid. So make sure you do take that extra time to look at it with fresh eyes and say, is this complexity necessary? Because old things oftentimes have a bunch of stuff bolted on that when we look at it with fresh new eyes, we say, oh, maybe it didn't need all that. And then, you need to decide whether you're going to go to SharePoint Designer 2013 or entirely to Power Automate. Now, if you've got an SPD 2010 workflow that's running on its own, you're not using it from your SharePoint 2013 workflow or anything like that, probably a great time to just, bite the bullet, jump into the future, and go to Power Automate for those. Unless you are unfamiliar with Power Automate, you're very familiar with SharePoint Designer 2013 because you've got a time crunch here. In that case, it may be a better decision to just go with 2013. The approaches you're going to take for a lot of these are similar. The things that are not available in 2013 that were available in 2010, these are not out-of-the-box actions that are available to you in Power Automate either. It's just you're going to end up using HTTP requests and the REST API either way you go for quite a few of these actions. Did I miss anything, Patrick?
Oh, thanks. So here's an example of yeah, that's great. And Hillary's been doing a lot of our workflow conversions, and she's also a Power Automate expert, as you know. Here's an example of one of our customers put together this nice workflow here, this diagram showing. And I don't know if we want to talk to this, Hillary, but this is an example of documenting what the workflows are doing. And what she did, and I want to do a shout out to Catherine here at Durham University. She's one of our customers that's migrating her workflows. And she made this really clever observation that, well, if you highlight what we need to deal with, these are her 2010s or these red boxes here. And so this is something that is an example of color coding that one of our customers did. I don't know if you want to add to that, Hillary.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was very helpful as someone unfamiliar with the workflow to look at. So if you are working with someone who's completely unfamiliar with your process, that was very helpful to me.
Yeah. Okay. So converting to 2013, obviously there's two options here for you. 2013 Power Automate. Hillary already mentioned these kind of these, I guess, pros and cons a little bit, but let's just go over them again. So, obviously it's less work to do 2013 conversion. Right now you've got 3 weeks left, I think, 4 weeks, something like that. And then, of course, the problem is that Microsoft might turn that off in a year or two as well, or maybe 3 years. And there are some workarounds that Hillary mentioned, the HTTP request. The Power Automate is obviously what we think is the best option, and that's the Microsoft roadmap. Obviously, new features are shipped daily or weekly, sometimes to the consternation of many people. But it does take more time, and I think that there are some workarounds. We're going to talk about those workarounds. In fact, here's a big slide, but this has a list of the things that are in 2010 that are not in 2013. And I want to shout out to Nate Chamberlain's website here. We have a link to this. He's done a nice job of listing these up. We're going to talk about many of these. So we've got like these bullets here on the left for these actions that aren't supported. Regarding document sets, there's those 4 bullets there. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about permissions and how you do impersonation steps with Power Automate. And then we'll show some techniques for creating tasks and list items and things like that. So we cover most of this stuff. There's a few esoteric things that probably aren't worth really. I mean, I don't know how many people are using the declare record action. Who knows? Maybe someone's. If you add comments, you can add comments to the webinar chat there. You should be able to add a comment or ask us a question. And yeah, that's the question, I guess. You have to ask us a question. You can actually say you're using one of these esoteric options like declare record. Hillary, do you know of anyone who's ever used that before?
Well, no, but I don't personally know all of the SharePoint Designer workflows in the world either. I haven't ever used any of these record options, and I haven't worked with a client where I've specifically seen these in use. But of course, that covers a small subset of users. So it does look like the REST API in SharePoint covers many of these things, like declaring a record, and so I think some of these things are covered by the REST API. I don't have deep knowledge though of them because I've not worked with it.
Yeah, and you know, to Microsoft's, I guess, point to Microsoft here is that, gee, it would have been great if they had actually allowed you to migrate 2010 to 2013. But because of all the stuff that wasn't supported, you can understand why they didn't do that. Okay, so let's move on here. So we're going to talk about workarounds, and first we're going to talk about the creating tasks, which is, we don't really have a really good demo for this, but let's talk about how we could use the planner tasks to do this. And I'm just going to switch. I think I have this open on my machine, so I'm just going to go to that. So we created this planner sample here with these buckets in it. And Hillary, do you want to talk to this at all?
Yeah, so the real challenge is if you're trying to replace like the out-of-box 2010 approvals with something. If you go with a planner task, it doesn't have the notion of approve reject, right? So Patrick, if you click on one of those, or actually, yeah, if you just click on one of those guys to open them up, right, you can see under progress what the options are. Boy, it's really aggressively wanting to tell you everything. So under progress, it's got not started, in progress, and completed, I think. And so there's no notion of approve or reject. We can't change these options. This is just kind of what you've got. In terms of organization, when you look at it, when you look at a plan, you see all of the tasks associated. Now we've got these stuck in buckets. You can theoretically filter this view by bucket. It is not my favorite. When you filter, it still shows all the bucket names. It just only shows the tasks under a given bucket. However, it is an option, and there is in Flow a trigger for when a task is completed. So you could, in theory, set up a flow that when an item's submitted to a library or a list, you go and you create these, you maybe create a new bucket inside of a single plan. You create a new bucket, you dump tasks in there, people go and mark them completed. You have another flow that watches for tasks from that plan to be completed, and then you go and do something else based on that. So yeah, I think tasks are, planner tasks are an option.
And also there's the task list itself, right? So in addition to planner tasks, we've got this, we can create a task list that is different than that, right?
Well, yeah, you could use a regular task list, and then you could submit submit new items to that task list, or you could use just a standard list to track your progress in and create items in that list. If you use a task list, first off, those aren't modern lists, so you may not want to take that route just because it's yet another thing that tends to look a little old and crufty in your site.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a lot of flexibility with a task list. It's got that built-in content type of task, and you're not going to have the approve reject buttons and things like that. If you used a customized list and you just created for your thing, whatever your thing is that you need approved, you created, items in that list and then sent an email to each user with a link to their item that they could click on, and then you can customize it. You can have a column that's like, status, and it could have approve, reject, or whatever your little heart desires. So that might be more flexible to use kind of a regular list.
But the bottom line is you're not going to get the same experience with the buttons and with the task
No,
list.
I don't think it's possible with the modern artifacts to create something that replicates precisely the experience of an out-of-the-box SharePoint 2010
But you do get this automate, these right-click, whatever, this modern actions, right, on the list.
You can also use these modern actions directly from your list item. So that's another alternative.
Do we know if we can customize these?
No. This is Cowboy Style. So if you want to go Cowboy Style, you can use this approach. Let's see, now you're looking at Power Automate approvals. Yeah. But if we look back at that list, so you guys know, right, in a modern list, you've got that option to look at an item and request sign off. And that's very Cowboy. That's very much just you get to put in who's going to sign off and add comments, and so that that leaves a lot in the hands of your users, more than many of us would like.
Do you want to show them that? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Let me just make you
Let me
presenter.
pop up a.
And I apologize to everyone for the random nature of the slides. We kind of threw these slides at the last minute, and I'm trying to figure out the sequence and the order of them. So I apologize for going back and forth so quickly. But
it'll just be a second and I'll show my screen. I just have to get to a site that has a list that's of a tolerable nature. I think probably everybody on this call has seen my demo sites and the type of content we're looking at here. So they know it's a hot mess. Okay, so hopefully I am showing my screen.
Yep.
And I've got a bunch of items here of varying content. And if I go to automate, I've got request sign off. I don't think I requested sign off before in this list. So it's probably going to create this flow. I don't know offhand where to access this flow. I'm pretty sure it does not show up under my flows in the flows site. I'm pretty sure that you have to go hunt for it. Just like when you customize a SharePoint list with Power Apps, you have to go hunt for it somewhere else. I think it's under the admin for the Power Platform. So you can see now that that flow has been created, I can pick whoever I want, right? I'm gonna pick Curvy. And let me make my mouse work here. And you can see these are at least both required, so kudos for that. And so now I can hit run flow, and you can see it says you can track the status for this request using the sign off status column. I don't think I can add multiple people. Let's see if I can. We'll find out. I can. All right, so now let's see what happens. So if I run the flow, it's got an in progress. And when I click on that, oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Sorry, you guys, you can tell I haven't done this before. So when I click on this, it actually takes me to the same page that you would see if we had created a standard workflow. I'm actually very excited about this.
Maybe that isn't a workaround. I'm just telling you.
Maybe that isn't a workaround. I mean, it told me it was creating it in Flow, but it takes me to this same thing with the workflow visualization. This is actually very exciting news for me. I don't know if we can modify that, and I don't know if we can hook into that outside of the whole user request sign off. I think what I've done here is I think I've clicked the wrong link. You guys, please forgive me. I clicked on the wrong link. I clicked on my test approvals workflow. That explains all of the confusion. This is the new sign-off status column. This explains it, sorry. So Curvy or Patrick, if either of you approved, did either of you get a task for my request sign-off?
Yeah, I did get an email.
Can you approve that?
And yep.
Yeah, okay, so I confused myself, guys. Sorry about all that. That was just a little nightmare. You can see, okay, so now I'm pending, and I imagine after both of you guys approve, it would go to approved. So again, we don't have that visibility into, like, you know, who's approved, who hasn't approved, that we did have, as you could see when I clicked on that test approvals column, that actually does go to a SharePoint workflow. I was so excited.
It didn't require, once she approved it, it already told me that I couldn't do it because it had already been approved. So
okay, so it's already, okay, so then it default sets to only one. Right, so there's another thing to be aware of, right? And probably if she had rejected it, then you also wouldn't have had an action available to you. That makes sense.
They're forcing it to be sequential because parallel is too hard. Okay, great. Well, let's just go back to the slides for a second then. This is, you know, kind of an ad hoc webinar today. It's kind of, we're just doing this as we go. So I'm going to quickly switch back to the slides. All right. So that's the first approach for creating tasks. You can use, and this is actually, the slides are out of order here, I apologize, but this is the planner, plans, and tasks. That's the third option when you're creating tasks, we've got the option to use Power Automate approvals, which we haven't talked about yet, and we've got the option to create a separate task list, which we already talked about. So we're out of order here, but let's talk a little bit about this other option here, this third option, and that is the Power Automate approvals. So this is good because you can actually do the approve reject directly from email, but like many other flows, you've got the 30-day limit, and you don't have the status visibility. And I guess that the workaround that Hillary has mentioned here is you could track status by creating a separate history list and then having a column in there that you filter based on the task ID or something like that. But then you couldn't handle it when it gets reassigned to somebody else, right?
Right. So we can't capture, we can't capture reassignment as far as I can tell. So the problems, and I want to like the Power Automate approvals, you guys. I'm not harshing on them. I really want to like them. The problems I've had with them are a lack of visibility. So you create these approvals, they get assigned to 4 people, and I can't see who's approved, who hasn't approved. There's no place for me to get any visibility. If you start and wait for an approval in your flow, it blocks you. Nothing's happening during that wait time. And right now, what I'm struggling with is whether or not I can capture individual responses. I think I'm going to have to create individual approval items instead of one approval item assigned to a bunch of people. So that's something I'm currently struggling with on a different project and trying to sort out in my head. And the other thing with approvals is you can reassign an approval, and I can't capture that in Flow. There's no way for me to track that. Can I share again? I want to show them.
Yeah, sure. We need to speed up a little bit, but go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys, well, these guys know that my webinars are always long. So here's an approval, in Flow, you pop it open, and I can do things like respond to it. And one of the things I can do is reassign it, but I can't recapture that. And if the flow is waiting on something to happen from this approval, it won't happen until it's been approved or rejected. The emails, if you're using Office 365 for Exchange, then you'll have actionable emails. My emails, we don't use Office 365 for Exchange, but you still get the buttons that take you back to the site.
Cool. Okay, great. So let's just speed this up a little bit. So we just talked about, thanks, Hillary. We just talked about creating tasks. There's 3 different workarounds here. We talked about creating a separate task list. We talked about creating planner tasks, planner plans and tasks. And we talked about using this the Power Automate approval stuff, which we just talked about. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. If I can get there. Okay, so we don't have slides for this for creating doc sets and elevating privileges, but we do have quick show and tells, and I just want to quickly talk to it, and then Hillary, I'll have you share it again. But for creating doc sets, Hillary's done a lot of investigation into this HTTP request, and here's a link to a website where they talk about it even further. And this is great for Power Automate, and for, I think, the REST API is similar for SPD 2013. Is that right? I mean, we're using this workaround for elevating permissions based on this site here, this POSZYTEK site, which has some information in it. I'm sorry, the Ben Prince site has information on REST. So the SPD 2013 workaround for the doc sets is similar to the workaround for elevating permissions. Is that right?
Well, yeah, just in the sense that you're using an HTTP request. So we have these things that we don't have actions for any longer, and many of them can be done with the REST API. So if you find a sample that shows how to use the REST API in Flow for something like creating doc sets or elevating permissions or changing permissions, then you can do that in Power Automate. If you find it for Power Automate, you can do it in SharePoint Designer in the same fashion. It's just the HTTP request action. Conversely, if you find documentation on using SPD 2013 HTTP actions, you can translate that to Power Automate. It's the same workaround, just different tools.
think I'm going to skip the demo on this because we're running out of time. And I think if people have questions, just feel free to reach out to us. Just email support@qdabra.com and we'll get on. But we've got some links here that hopefully we'll provide the slide deck after the webinar, and hopefully these will be able to help you. We've done a lot of these already. So I'm just going to switch ahead here to this final thing I want to talk about, which is we have a solution that we're working on. I'm sorry about this crazy vertigo-inducing slide deck that Kirby needs to. I don't know, Kirby. Maybe this is just me. Sorry. So we have a solution for forms. So I guess the question is, how many people are using forms out there? I'm guessing most of you are. And we've spent several months now working on a centralized solution for Flow. I'm really happy to demo this for you today. We're going to show. Actually, let me just show this quickly here. So we've actually created this what we call a solution, which includes Power Automate. So it's got several pieces to it. And let me just quickly go back to the link here in chat, because I did not. This is a very disorganized webinar this morning. I apologize for that, but let me just get the link here from Kirby's chat window. And Kirby, if you get the link and you want to throw it in chat real quick, that would be good. I just forgot where it is. Maybe I'll have you demo it. Why don't you demo it? Is Kirby there?
Hi, Patrick.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just pasted.
Okay, so you got.
All right, so
Yeah, let me just talk to this a little bit, and then I'll let you demo further. But I wanted just to mention to people that we've got this task pane that we're going to show you how to add this to your forms. We actually did a webinar on this about a month ago. We've made some improvements to it, and specifically, let's go back to the task pane, please. Thanks. And actually, let's go back to the form and the task pane. So when you add this task pane to your form, it automatically adds this flow. So the flow is centralized. There's one flow for all of these forms. And the benefit of that is that you've got lower maintenance costs. You've got everything in one place, so you can actually do reporting consistently. And the task pane itself is consistent. So you've got kind of this now the buttons change, but you've got this task pane that does not scroll out of view if your form is really long. In this case, our form is pretty small. Actually, you've added the debug information at the bottom, so you can see that with the scrolling. So when, so Kirby, you paste this link. I actually, I think, let me just fill this out. We don't have time to fill this out. So why don't we just skip to show them how it's easy to add. Actually, let's go to the admin. So the task pane has these buttons, and the buttons control the workflow. So you map your workflow into a table like this. Now, this is a very simple one. You can see we've got approvals, notifications, and it's basically a data-driven, list-based solution for telling Flow what the states, and telling the form what the states of the next, if you hit submit or save, here's where it's going to go. So in this case, we've got new form open, so we've got these two different buttons, save and submit. And if Kirby clicks submit, it's going to send an email to her because that's the assignee. Now you could also have manager here. You could have a distribution list. You could have a security group. We talked about this in our webinar in September as well. But what we've added recently is this ability to customize the email envelope, and that's that blue envelope email icon you see there. So you can actually go in here, and there's a default email that gets sent out, but you can also go in here and actually customize the email envelope. And that can be per row, so it can be every single step in your workflow can have a different one. And this is what we're doing to allow you, and obviously as an admin, you can see this from any form. Any form you open, you can go into the states for that form, but the normal users would not be able to see this. So if the normal users open the form, they're not going to have that. Go back to the, click close here, Kirby, and let's go back to the previous, go out of admin mode. If you go back to the home icon there on the right. Yeah, so most of the users, when they open the form, they're going to see this with the task pane. Yeah, click on that, and they will not have access. If they close the task pane, they will not see that home icon. And so for you as an admin, you'll be able to go in and change the workflow on demand. Let's just do that for a second, Kirby, just to show them what that looks like. Go into the admin and let's add an action or add a button for I don't know if we want to say new cancel or something like that. And yeah, just go ahead and fill this out, and then we'll show them how easy it is to update these things. So this is actually submitting to a list, and when she does this and refreshes the form, she should be seeing this new button then. And so it's very dynamic. We also provide a dashboard to allow people to manage. Because everything's now centralized, you can have a dashboard that shows all the forms in your flows, and this is another benefit. So did it show up there? Yeah, it did. Great. Let's show them the dashboard quickly, and we're running out of time. I appreciate your patience, but we'll wrap this up here in about 5 minutes. And this can be added to your forms, this task pane and this flow, which is centralized, can be added to your form libraries in about an hour or less. I mean, we've got it down to about 10 minutes, but we've been doing this a lot for customers who have gazillion form libraries. What she's opening here now is the admin dashboard, and it's taking a long time for some reason. Maybe Kirby, you can show them how it's, the next part of the demo, which is how easy it is to add the XTP to the form.
Yeah, I can show them that. So here I have a sample form leave request, and I'm opening it in the designer, InfoPath Designer. And here I also have the XTP, or the template part that we implement in the forms to have the approval feature. So to add that, you're just gonna go here to the add or remove custom controls, click template part, then next, browse for that XTP, and here it is. So click finish, click OK, and then we're just gonna set our cursor here at the bottom of the actual form, and then go back here, click the added XTP reusable template part, and then in a few seconds here, it's going to add this sections here in your form, all of the features that are inside that XTP. This is the section that we saw earlier for the custom email, and it also added a bunch of fields in here. So it also got this instruction guide here. So you have to make sure that you have Qdabra rules injected in your form to make sure that all of the rules are going to work. And yeah, you're just going to, like, for example, here you're gonna run the onload rules in the Qdabra rules finish loading by adding this action here to trigger the run onload rules in this node here under the XTP logic. So if we add that, it's going to run the rules under that node on form load. So
it's really easy to add this to your form. And this is an InfoPath Designer, which of course also has an end of life approaching. We're going to show it quick. I'm going to switch screens here for a second, Kirby, and we are working on a replacement for InfoPath Designer. In fact, we did a webinar on this 2 weeks ago. We have a Forms Designer here that's browser-based. But the benefit of the solution that Kirby showed is this ability to quickly upgrade your forms to Power Automate. And obviously you need to map the workflows that you have to that sort of tables, and there's a bunch of steps on that. We have documentation on how to do that. We're going to be talking about it in our free training next week. If you have time, we're doing training Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific through 12 p.m. So it's just 2.5 to 3 hours a day. If you're interested in that, let us know. And I want to just open the floor to any questions at this time. I know we've lost a few of you, but any questions from the remaining audience? For Hillary, for me, for Kirby.
And you guys always can email us, so support@qdabra.com. I know for me a lot of times, or you guys all have my email address, hillary.stupid@qdabra.com. I don't know my email address, but I know sometimes for me, I come up with questions later. So yeah, just drop us a line.
And so our goal is, thanks Hillary, our goal is really to to enable you to surf these waves that Microsoft is generating and keep your solutions alive and well and upgrade them to the future. And that's why we built Forms here. That's why we're building and releasing Forms Designer hopefully by the end of the year. And that's why we created this solution to help you move those SPD 2010 workflows over to Power Automate. So thanks again for joining, and I want to thank Kirby for all the hard work she put in to create these slides and the solution itself, and Hillary for doing all these migrations and being an inspiration for this webinar today. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.